Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Seeking Profit. My name is Andrew, and I'm here with my good friend Emil. Emil, since you have kids, I was wondering, what kid snack do you eat during the day? Because I have to eat their snacks. I just can't not.
Dude, I was just talking about this with my wife. It's like when you have kids and whatever, you're trying to diet or eat clean, it's impossible because you feed your kids so many snacks. Like you're just around snacks all the time, and it's impossible to not be like, okay, 5 for you, 1 for me. Like just always eat snacks. I just eat what my kids don't. So like my daughter's been into like rice cakes with the Laughing Cow cheese and the everything but the
Circle
bagel
cheese.
Yeah, exactly. No, the like little triangles that you can kind of spread, the soft cheese with the everything but the bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's. She's been eating those, and like she'll eat 75% of it, and then I'm like, ooh, sweet little snack for me. What about you? What is your like favorite?
I was like looking at my desk. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? It's like littered with Paw Patrol gummy wrappers. And then it won't be snack time, and I'll like sneak out of my office and I'll grab like a Paw Patrol gummy, and like the kids will be like mortified. They'll be like, "Daddy, that's our gummies." I'll just be like,
"Oh, okay."
I'll like sneak back in.
You're like, who paid for this? Who paid
That's
for this?
right, yeah. These are mine. I'm lending them to you right now. But I want to get into it because we have a heavy topic today. It is the bread and butter of a content business, writing. And if you are past the part of you writing and you have other people helping you out, you need to tell them what to do, what to write. When I did it, it was a pretty lame thing. I didn't know that this thing called a content brief existed. Emil is really good at it, and he sends out a ton each month. And Emil, you are going to show us exactly how you create a brief and how it is not as painful as a lot of people think it is. So I'm going to hand it to you. Show us how it's done, man.
Awesome. So yeah, it's I wouldn't say I'm really good at it. I've just done it enough where I have a decent idea. I'm actually hoping somebody comments and tells me how I could make mine even better. But yeah, use these for a long time because I've outsourced content, whether I was in-house, whether working on my own sites, client sites, all that stuff. The magic, I always say, is in the brief. We record an episode on like how to outsource content, how to find writers, vet them, all these things. And like we glossed over the brief. So this is kind of a continuation of that episode, showing you guys how to create the brief, which in my eyes is the most important thing in outsourcing. It's the roadmap. It's the rubric. It's you passing on your knowledge of your site and what you want to cover to the writer who can help fill in the gaps.
I think a good example, because you're showing me something, and it's like this writer knows the topic really well, and it's almost like the brief for you is to make them not write you like a 30-page novel and just answer the bits that need to be answered.
Yeah. Like SEO, when someone's searching for something, they're looking for information in a certain way. And you do this enough and you kind of figure it out. And you think of yourself, when you search and you're looking for answers, there's patterns. And that's kind of my job, is to figure out the patterns, get someone to value as quickly as possible, and they land on my site. So that's, I think, my skill or talent in this. And then the writer is the person who actually knows how to fill in the blanks. All right, so this is the tool I use. I mean, a lot of SEOs have different tools. There's ones out there called Surfer, ClearScope. A lot of people are familiar with Market Muse, all those. They do like content graders. This is one I started using back in the day, a couple years ago. It's called Topic. It was actually acquired by Cafe Media, which owns AdThrive. So it's now only available for AdThrive users, I believe. So if you use AdThrive for your ads, they have I don't know if it's still called Topic or something else, they renamed it, but you have access to this. Again, there's other ones out there. But what this allows me to do, it's like a content grader like ClearScope, which looks at the top 10 results for a certain keyword, looks at what keywords and topics are most commonly used, helps you kind of figure out how to be the most thorough on a certain topic. A lot of people like to game it just by stuffing keywords. It's more so like to actually cover topics, not just stuff keywords in. But what topic does, which is really cool, it shows me the top 10. I can see, the title, last updated. That's kind of cool. I don't know how it pulls that in. I've never really looked at it. Domain authority from Moz, which I don't really look at too much. Word count is helpful. And then the content grade. So scrolling down, this is the really important part. What topic does is it gives me X-ray vision into the top articles. So I can see these are all H2s. And I believe this is H3. So it'll show me all H2s and H3s that give me essentially the outline of what other people are covering. So this is like the easy, fast way to figure out where the gaps are, figure out what, if everyone's covering something, right? Like what is blah, 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 probably means I have to rank, right? It just allows you to see what's ranking, what does Google like, and where the gaps may be. Scroll down further, you got this questions to answer. This is the people also ask. So this is really cool. It just shows me all these different things people are asking, and it ranks it in terms of relevance, I think, to the main keyword here. Topics to cover. So this allows me, this is like, again, the ClearScope thing where grouping by theme kind of tries to cluster these. A lot of times they'll use the same words, but in similar veins. Allows me to like toggle them together, and then I can add them to my outline. I'll do that at the end. I'm just kind of showing people how the tool works. And that's a quick overview. So my first step, I always start with the headline, right? And the first thing I want to do is kind of look at how I can create a gap again. So Reggio Emilia. So this is a brief I created in the past. I own a parenting site. It's like 4 months old. It's brand new. And one of my writers is a Montessori educator. So she's got I think a master's in Montessori education, knows it really well. And so I went and looked for a bunch of keywords around Montessori, these different types of educational styles for kids. And, you see like the first one and the third one, right? What's the difference? Overview of philosophies, things like that. So for me, the way I'm going to create these as some different, I'm going to do Reggio Emilia versus Montessori, right? Get the keyword out front here. And I'm going to call it similarities and differences, right? Everyone's talking about just the differences. How are they similar? I want to know, like, are these kind of the same? Are they similar? You just want to think of something that's a little bit different. The way I look at it is a little bit different from what's out there. Or again, what are the gaps you're going to cover in this article that's going to make it different? If I just call mine, what's the difference again? Like what's my likelihood that Google is just going to throw another one up there without me having a super strong domain, right? Like if I'm a big site, if I'm like parents.com, I can probably just do copycat content and rank because I have a big domain, but I got to think of how I can be a little different.
In a versus, how do you decide which will come first? Do you even think it matters? Like, could you put Montessori first?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think the keyword tools picked up on this one being more searched. More people search for it this way than Montessori versus Reggio Emilia. So I just did it that way. Gotcha. And you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 are doing it in this order, and then the fifth one, I guess it says 4, but it's the fifth. This must be a featured snippet. Yeah, it says featured snippet. This one is like reversed, but then again, Reggio Emilia is leading. That one flips it. So I just usually do it. Whatever the keyword tool tells me is like more so the way people are doing it. So that's how I did it here. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm thinking of word count next. And so the way I use this is it's spitting out the average based on the top 10, but you can see there's some outliers here. Like this result has 4,200. This one has 37. This one at the bottom, 22. But if you look at the top 4, that's kind of what I use to ballpark this. So there's 1,000, 1,800, 1,600. So I'm going to shoot for like 1,400, 1,500 on this one. This is a newer site, so I'm going to go a little bit longer. But I override this and make my word count 1,500 just based on the top 4. Now it's the fun part. It's the outline. So again, coming down here, I can see what everyone's covering. I also am like, before I really go into what everyone else is doing, I really try to think about like your best tool is your brain, right? You're going to think about this differently than everyone else has. A lot of what people are doing here is coming and copying what everyone else did. And, I mentioned it's good to see what everyone else is doing. But first, I want to start with what do I think this person is here to do? So I want an overview of each one, right? So overview of Reggio Emilia. So that's going to be an H2. And what I want the writer to cover here, obviously give a description of what it is, price, right? These are private education for young children. So average cost. I know they have different geographical footprints. So some may be more popular on the West Coast versus the other one is more the East Coast, whatever it is. So I'm giving someone an idea of the geographical footprint. And then I want them to finish with pros and cons. And I could make each one of these an H3. I just want them to talk about it, naturally. So I'm just going to move this in as a bullet instead of an H3. And then I want the other one. So overview of Montessori. If it's not clear to our people listening as a podcast, this is probably going to be a much better episode on YouTube. So definitely go watch this on YouTube. I think you'll just get more out of it. Trying to speak as I'm writing, but I think you'll just get more value on YouTube. So overview of Montessori, and then I can just say same as above. I don't need to retype it. Writer will get it. Okay, let's make that a bullet. All right, next. Most people are comparing these two, right? So they want to know the differences. We've given them an overview of what each one of these things are, but let's make it really, really easy for the writer to understand the differences between these two. So differences between Reggio Emilia and Montessori. I don't know about you. I am terrible at spelling when I know I'm being watched. Do you have that problem?
I'm just only good at it when I'm trying to talk without the kids understanding.
Okay. What are the differences here? And I can give them some helper text. Again, I know my level of writer, so I don't need to add it. But let's say you wanted to add something here. Let's say you wanted to do, what do you think the common things would be? It'd be
price,
philosophy,
age, right? Yeah, who could even go to it?
Yeah. So, again, when I handed this off to a writer, I didn't include these because they are Montessori educated, so I know that they're going to know the differences and they're a good writer. But there's certain things where, I don't know, I want them to highlight certain things because maybe you have been writing your own content and now you're outsourcing it. So the topics really, really well. You just don't want to write anymore because that's the longest part and you're trying to scale. This is where you need to give as much details and information as you can so someone can just come in and fill in the gaps like you would rather than you having to write everything. So again,
I think it's they could write about anything and it would be useful because they're an expert in the space, but you need to say my readers want this information. So just this, make sure this is in there.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you've cultivated a certain brand style and the way you've kind of templated out articles, where you answer certain things in each one, that's where you can kind of convey this. So I want them to cover the differences between them. Now, I've covered the basic stuff. This one was kind of easy for me to figure out. And as you can see, this one doesn't really talk about what we did, but this one covers it. What is the Reggio Emilia philosophy? What is the Montessori approach? The differences. Similar, then they end with similar but different. This one kind of the same thing. What are the overviews and what are the differences? Now I want to scroll down to that question. The people also ask stuff to give me more an idea of what do people care about when they're searching for these things. So one thing I thought was different is, do Montessori students do better? And this makes sense. As a parent, why are you sending your kid to this school? Because you think they're going to come out of it more advantaged than the other ones. That's really, that's the crux of all this, right? I want my kid to be smarter or have a leg up in whatever it is. So that's what we need to answer now. So that's what I'm going to add. I said, which philosophy... I mean, you can answer the question straight up. I don't really like to pull questions straight out of people also ask. I feel like you're over optimizing something. You know what I mean? Your H2s are perfect. People also ask. It's you're creating SEO content, which Google always talks about. Don't create content for search engines. I mean, clearly that's not the case given how SEO works, but I just try to rephrase it in something that is the same thing, but not exactly like that. So this says, do Montessori students do better? Which philosophy do students do better in, or something? That's not what I'd use, but on the spot, good enough. Okay. And so this is where I'm going to give the writer an extra prompt. So I'm going to say, are there studies that show students do better, right? Do better in school after one of these, right? Like, is my kid going to do better in kindergarten, in grade school, all those things? If so, talk about those here. And then if not, right? Like, so what if there aren't? We need like a backup plan. If not, I'm sure there are just like studies that talk about these schools and like the efficacy of them, right? They can't just be like, pay us 5 times the normal cost of a private school, and we have no reason to believe that they're any better, right? Like, so if not, cite studies on these 2 programs or whatever, and the efficacy of them, right? Like, whatever. I'm sure Reggio Emilia and Montessori say, oh, our kids end up going to Harvard at 2 times the rate, or just some. Again, they have to like figure out some marketing or whatever it is. So that's where I'm going to guide the writer a little bit. And then again, like in a versus, everyone wants like the verdict, right? Like you've seen it when you're doing an affiliate style article, a versus, you do comparisons, you highlight, and then you give your verdict, right? Like, so which one do we think is better for you? So if I'm the parent here, I want you to kind of lead me. So like, which one is better for my child? So I'm going to say how to choose the right education or whatever for your child. And so here I would probably, it's kind of just like a summary that people like who've read this. So like, what do I do? So like, I think one of these is more, let's say one is more arts focused, one is more science and math. That's not true, but let's just say to make this easy, if your child is more interested or whatever, more receptive to arts and play, X schools might be better, and then vice versa, right? So like, again, just simply giving the person what they came for. Here's what we think. Being some type of prescriptive, because like the worst thing is you read an article and it's just like, here are the facts, go do with them as you please.
And you didn't learn anything. You didn't get your questions answered. Exactly.
So I want to help guide this person into making the decision based on all the facts we've presented. We may talk about, if your budget is only so much, this may be better for you, obviously, because this one is like 3x the price. But this in general is kind of just how I create these. So it's a sum of using my brain, my knowledge of this topic, thinking about if I were to search for this, what are the things I would want answered? And then Google helping me fill in the blanks and looking at what other people are doing and potentially getting some ideas there. All right, so now I have my outline, final thing in topic. And again, depending on the tool you use, it's going to be a little different. Maybe you just, if you're using ClearScope, you just like attach the ClearScope report. You shoot like a 3-minute Loom video that walks the writer through how to think about using these keywords and everything. I know some people, Ryan Durrani, who's on Twitter and LinkedIn, smart SEO, freelancer, he talks about like sometimes he goes through and he assigns specific keywords to certain sections or topics. He's like, cover this here and use these here, which is like another level, power to him. But like, that's a little more than I do. What I can do is again, group these by theme, and topic is only so good at grouping them by theme, but like tries to find things that are close to each other. You see how it's like color coordinated, like Montessori teachers, Montessori classroom environment. So it tries to figure out like semantically where are these similar, adds them here, and that'll create a nice bulleted list. One thing I forgot to cover here, the meta description, you can add that in. I use like OpenAI's Playground, which I just showed you before we hopped on, which is a nice like prompt outside of Chat GPT. You can just throw prompts in there and it'll answer them one at a time. Topic actually I think it uses an old version of GPT, so these aren't as good. like semantically. The language is better if I just use Playground. So I'll go into Playground and say like, give me 3 meta descriptions for an article title. Then I'll just copy paste the title and I'll spit them out. I choose one or I combine some that I like, throw it in the description, boom, ready to go. Then you just come copy clipboard. This is just how I do it. It's going to be different for everybody. I throw it into a Google Doc. So this was like the final version. You can see the topics to cover down here. And I have guidelines in my brief. So this is another thing I recommend people do is like, this is just templated out. I just include it in every single brief, right? I copy a doc. I leave this the same. And, I talk about like how to write the intro, talking about including personal anecdotes. I'm big on that. Like include your own stories. That's how we're going to make each article different is you, the writer, talking about things that are particular to you. Cite and link to stats. Don't add a conclusion. Like some writers just default to like in conclusion or wrapping up, right? Like I don't need that unless it's in the outline. I tell them how to use the topics to cover at the end. I think I do a Loom video also that walks them through that, but I give them here like, yeah. And then I notice a lot of writers to expand word count, will say things like I will, or it is, or you are. And I like more casual writing. So I mentioned that here as well.
So everything below guidelines is literally copied directly from topic?
Yeah. So this is like I delete it, I copy from topic, paste it in, shows the title, the description, the word count I want them to aim for, and then the outline.
That's awesome. So you literally just quickly spec'd it out in topic. I mean, all of the actual keywords were literally just pulled directly from topic, and then you just paste your personal guidelines for the site at the top.
Yes. I also, just one quick note, I come into this topics to cover. Sometimes you'll see like the grades on these, right? Like the content grades, they'll be like all D's and F's, which means like everyone's kind of covering different things. Those are actually the best because that means intent is probably poorly answered. So everyone's kind of just all over the place. Google can't figure out the right thing. So on those, like they'll throw in a bunch of random topics and I'm just like, there's no way this relates to what we're going to write about. So I'll go through these and like get rid of some that just won't make sense for what we're going to be talking about in this article.
Would you lean, so, you filter out the ones that are really out in the weeds or don't even make sense. Do you also just cull the list generally, or do you try and keep it more broad as long as it's touching upon the things you care about? I try to cull it down pretty well. Like, let's say we're doing a best whatever, right? And like, it's always going to pull in, like everyone's using certain brands, right? Like let's talk about best basketball shoes for whatever. That's the example I always use, right? It's going to say Nike and Adidas and whatever. Sometimes I actually like to remove those because I don't want the writer to kind of be persuaded by, I got to use Nike or Adidas or whatever. I want them to like actually like, tell me, what are your favorites? If it's not in this, if it's not these certain brands, they usually cover those brands anyway, but I don't want to lead them in certain directions on certain things. So I'll remove those. That makes sense. I think like you said, they're already going to cover Nike. Like if you're talking about shoes, you're going to cover Nike. But it's better that they almost have to come up with things because that could be a unique angle. Exactly. Right. Because if I'm Google, I'm thinking, do I really want all top 10 of my results to be the same? No. Like you see it all the time. And I think it's like rehashing it. Exactly. Like Bernard from ClearScope, he's done a bunch of presentations on this. Like Google takes this approach where they want different angles for certain queries. That's why you see different headlines. And that's why I'm incorporating that. I'm trying to think of like, how can I make something unique that's just going to take a little bit of a different angle? Like I have a client who does, my agency has a client. It's like screen monitoring software. It's like a tracking software. See if your employees are working or whatever. And so, like on the top 10 results, you'll see all these like different, it's like, what is screen monitoring software or time tracking software? Pros and cons. Is it ethical to use? There's all these like different angles because, if it's all just a bunch of what is, like that's not really helping the user. You want to like give them different angles. They've already been answered. Do you need a writer to tell you if it's ethical or not? Or like get to the meat of it. Give me that thing I want. Right. And just taking, Google is showing different angles. So that's
part of what you need to play into here. That's at least the approach I take.
I dig it. Can we just steal this for Lasso?
If you want to write about Reggio Emilia and Montessori, go for it.
We won't compete with you on this keyword, but I think that we need, a very tight, structured approach like this. I've been too fluffy, and I think that's where we've really lost. Is we get a lot of the in the weeds stuff because I was not specific enough with what needed to be created.
And dude, at the beginning, when I was outsourcing content in-house, we did the same thing. It was like, here's the title, go for it. If you're creating listicles, it's pretty straightforward. Just a list of these things, right? Like I don't need to, maybe again, what do I want under each listicle? This thing, and then go ahead, go for it. But creating these briefs, it's more widely accepted. Like a lot of in-house teams, especially at SaaS companies or whatever, they all use this style. And it's, I think more content creators and content site owners are picking up on this because it's the only way to me how you outsource content. I know there's some big publishers who just kind of teach people how to do this in a way. Here's my process for creating something. To me, it's just too much leeway. I find good writers, but I feel like me or someone on the team has to create the rubric or the roadmap that they should follow to make this tight and hit the areas we need to. You just get so much better of a product when you do this.
I mean, I could definitely see that. It just also what screams out to me is the removal of the back and forth time, trying to get what they created into what it actually needs to be. And I'm realizing now that we just had a really long editing process, and it was a miserable battle for everyone to get it there. Everyone wanted it to be where it needed to go, but we're create this thing, and then after you create it, I think we'll know what we want, and then we'll orient it. And it just, no one liked it. Yes. It was a bad process.
That is an even better point that I completely glossed over is it removes so many back and forths of editing, because what always happens is you have an idea of it in your head of what you think this is going to look like. And then a writer has their idea of how they want it to look. And it's a mismatch. So this is a way for you to be this is exactly what I want. Your writer knows, and it's coming back. And the editing is minor things. Hey, can you also include this or whatever? It's way less that I rarely ask for feedback because I hand out briefs. It's so much less.
I didn't want to write it, so I didn't want to do too much work, but I'd include a bunch of links and describe some things, but putting the H2s in is and even the H3 is really easy. And I guess also it just feels like this would be so much cheaper of a process for us to run because it just takes way less of everyone's time. Our writers are per piece, or editors are usually inundated, and they're an hourly thing. And now one final ask: can we include a link to this brief or an example brief that you've done in the description so people can vibe with your format? Yeah.
I'm, whoever wants to come compete with me in parenting against the behemoths, let's go. I mean, this site's not doing anything. We'll see. It's a big bet. So I'm happy we'll throw this in. We'll make this available.
Yeah, even if it was of a different topic or something, I just think it's really valuable to be able to look at it and then build off of it,
right,
and customize it for your, awesome. So we'll include that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything else pitfalls or anything we need to let people know about?
No, I would just say don't feel like you're ever going too granular with this. You can see mine. This one's actually not that crazy, right? I have a couple things here, right, as helper text under each of these. Sometimes these things are 2 pages long because they need to be. So don't feel like you're going overboard with these. The more thorough, and also early on, lean on being more detailed with new writers. And then once they kind of get your process and your thinking style, it becomes, you can start doing shorter ones like this, and they know how you like to format and edit and structure these things. So more detail. Never
Well,
bad
I'm not
thing.
a writer. I imagine it like reduces their anxiety over trying to figure out like what does Emil want. Like they just want to make you happy, you know?
Right. I actually, so in part of negotiating with writers, I send them these as an example. You know, I say, here's the volume we're going to be doing. I'm also going to be sending you these briefs, which will make your time, like usually a writer would have to go and do all this stuff themselves. Like they create the outline, they have to think about what they want to talk about. This is more so like me saying, please cover this. Like they can just hop in and start writing about this without having to do the initial research. So I think it also helps me negotiate better rates with writers. The fact that I tell them up front, you'll get a brief for each assignment.
I could see that helping because then they know there's just going to be less back and forth.
Yeah.
Not getting this, they probably would say no to people like that. It's almost like the reverse of a test. Instead of for the hirer, it's for like the hiree.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, awesome. We are going to include a link to this in the description. Feel free to compete with Emil. You probably are not creating things like this, so but I think it'll be helpful. If there is anything you wish we included, want to see, ask in the comments, topics you want us to cover. We love doing this stuff, like pulling back the curtain on how we build things. If you want to talk to Emil and tell him that you love this, you hate this, you have an idea, you can hit him up on Twitter at Emil Shore. If you wanted to compliment me on how silent I was during this episode, just DM me at Andy Phoebe. Give us a like on the video, follow the channel. That helps with the algorithms, and it also gives us a little bit of encouragement to do more stuff like this. Emil, thanks for laying it out for us, letting people compete with you on this keyword, and I'll see you in the next episode, man.
Absolutely, dude. Talk to you later.
We're seeking profit. We're seeking profit. We're seeking profit. We're seeking profit.